So I was asked by Lynn to speak about government corruption, especially in light of what we've seen in the papers, what's going on in this county, what's going on in this state, what's going on in this nation. And it's nothing new, because there's corruption everywhere. So the corruption goes way back in government. It goes back to the ancient Romans. One of the reasons the Roman Empire collapsed was because of too much corruption. People taking bribes, people not doing what they were supposed to do, and people not working. We're paralleling in some ways in this nation the Roman Empire, but we'll see what happens, because they lasted about 1,000 years. I don't know if we'll get another 900 out of us. When I think about corruption, you got to think, where does it come from? Well, it comes from people. You always hear government officials talking about, oh, we need new rules, we need new laws. We need new laws to tell us government officials shouldn't take a bribe to do something. We really need new bribery laws to do that. Do we really need new laws to tell us that you need to disclose your conflicts, your business interests, when we already have those laws? So when you hear politicians talk about the needs for new laws, well, maybe we could tinker with them, but the real problem is not the laws, it's the people. Because no matter what law you have, if somebody wants to steal, if someone wants to take a bribe, they're going to do it. Now that's only one level of corruption. I'm talking about, it's greed that is the issue. People are doing it because they want to enrich themselves, they want to make money. And believe me, that's a big part of the corruption that we've seen. But another part of the corruption are people who are into government for power. They want to satiate their own lust for power. And I think a classic example of that, and you see in tomorrow's primary, is Elliot Spitzer. He doesn't care about money. His father's worth $500 million. He's worth $50 million and didn't work for it. So he's all about power. That's another facet. So you look at the money and the power, those are the two things that people care about if they're going to be corrupt government officials. In New York, what you've seen in recent years, at least from the state legislature, has been a lot of corruption involving what's called member items. Are you familiar with member items, what they are? What happens in government, and it's gone on for years in Albany, is that if you're in the majority, let's say usually it's the majority that controls the budget, that control the purse strings in government. So that if you're in the assembly, and Sheldon Silver decides he wants to give you some presents so you can give them out to your constituents, you go there with some member items. You know, I want $100,000 for some playground. I want $500,000 for some community group that I founded that's going to help people receive medical care or educational knowledge, how to do with education. And what the politicians did in Albany for years and years, they had these member items that they funded, and the legislatures, they were happy to dole them out. Everyone gets them. They vote them on in the budgets, and millions of dollars are passed along. Lo and behold, the elected officials, at least some of them, decided that's a good way to steal money. So they would set up these public interest groups. They would set up these foundations. They would set up all these member item organizations, funnel the money to them, and then steal the money. And the way they would do that is they would fill the organizations with their family members, with their political cronies, with people who used to work with them on their staffs. And of course, Sheldon Silver, who has got a big... People say, what? Has anyone read my columns like the New York Post or the R-Town? People, how can you write that? Aren't you afraid? I really don't care anymore. Because, I'm on a pension and a private practice, and they can't do anything to me. So once you're not involved with politics and government, what can Sheldon Silver do to me? Nothing. So it's wonderful because I can say exactly what I believe. So what has happened over these years is that all these legislators said, this is a good idea. We can funnel this money to ourselves. And it's taxpayer money. And it's not going to the cause for which it was meant, which was helping the poor. That's all, and that's what really boggles the mind. All these politicians are going to help the poor, right? They're going to do all these great things for these poor people who need the money, and they steal the money. And then you see what they do with it. Now, another person, Shirley Huntley, who cooperated with the feds, so we may be seeing more people get indicted down the road. But Shirley Huntley set up a community group, these member items with her family members were involved, but I think it was mostly cronies, and they were supposed to be helping people with education in the poor community, and they took the money and she bought things like fancy wines, cigarettes, and she bought clothes for herself and her dog, which are tax dollars. You got Carl Kruger, who took bribes. The last figure I have is over $1 million in bribes to do things for people. When he was state senator from Brooklyn, he's one of the three amigos. Another one of my favorites is Brian McLaughlin, assemblyman from Queens, set up member items, had money doled out to Little Leagues, and then stole the money from the Little Leagues. And then, one person is Joe Bruno, and that's a very confusing case with people. Joe Bruno was originally convicted on something called depriving the public of his honest services. And that means it's a federal crime, and you know what a federal crime is? If you pick up the phone and you tell someone you love them and you don't, that's wire fraud because you lied. It's very broad law. But that case was reversed because they said you have to take a bribe or a kickback now to deprive someone of their honest services. He didn't disclose conflicts of interest. In other words, he had business connections he didn't disclose, and they said that's not enough. But now they re-indicted him. He's about 85 years old. I don't know what's going to happen, but they're going after him again, and it's just, these federal cases can go on forever. So that's where you're seeing one major form of corruption in New York, and that's with these member items. And there's also bribes involved in all this stuff. There's so many indictments pending right now that I lose track of them sometimes. You got this guy, William Boylan. He's an assemblyman, and he's the best for what he does. He was on trial federally for corruption. And as he was doing that, he was taking bribes from undercover FBI agents to pay for his lawyers on the corruption case. So they indicted him, and that's pending. They indicted him for the new bribery. That's not enough for Boylan. No. He also decides he's going to be padding his expenses. So he's running up his expenses, saying that he's, per diems, I guess it's $100-something per day. He's saying he's in Albany when he's not in Albany, so he can run up his per diems for food and commuting. Except he's saying he's in Albany, getting his per diem, when he's taking a bribe from the FBI agents in Brooklyn. So he's not in Albany. So they now have indicted him on that. There may be a third indictment, I've lost track. But the best part about Boylan, he's still in Albany as an assemblyman voting on legislation and budgets. He's still there, because they haven't convicted him yet. You only get booted out of office once you're convicted. The land deals, I think a classic case, in Rockland County, where's the corruption? Once again, there's an indictment, so all these people are presumed innocent, so don't think that I think the Mayor of Spring Valley is guilty just because I'm sitting here talking about this case. But she is, you have the Mayor of Spring Valley who somehow got hooked up with these guys in New York City, where you have Malcolm Smith, who has been investigated by the feds for like a decade straight in all sorts of shady deals, which I won't go into. He's trying to get the Republican nomination for mayor. So he starts bribing Republican Party leaders in New York City, in the Bronx and I think Queens. And as he's doing that, he's bribing them with money from an informant from Rockland County who's trying to build a community center in Spring Valley, on Spring Valley land, I think in front of the Village Hall. And what's interesting is, one day I'm driving to Village Hall, I have a case in Spring Valley, and I see this big sign, the community center catering hall is coming. I got this big old picture of this thing, and I'm going to myself, who would want to build that over here? Well, they were going to build it over there. But what happened was, the allegations that in the indictment is that the way Spring Valley got involved was that the people who the FBI agents were undercover working with the informant, who was also the informant in Spring Valley, who was offering the bribes up to the mayor and to a trustee named Desmarais to vote to get this thing going here, this community center, and they were going to get their kickbacks. Desmarais was pretty cheap. I think he wanted $10,000 or $10,500 when really he originally wanted 20, but he settled for 10. Our friend, if the allegations are true, the mayor wanted a piece of the action. She wanted 50% of the business, and she was going to put it under her friend's name. Now, the voters are as crazy as the people they elect. And what you have is, as they're taking the 50% interest, all this stuff. If I know the feds, the feds do not bring an indictment unless they have a case. They don't like a prosecutor gets stuck with cases because people come in and they're crazy witnesses, but you got to do it anyway. The feds are like, all right, crazy witness, we're not doing that. But if you give them a case with undercover FBI agents, with videotapes, audio tapes, and everybody's mother there, yeah, they like that case. So I tend to think that's a pretty strong case against her, and we'll have to see what happens. But look at the Shady Land Deals. One of my favorites, and I wrote a column on this, and this one just really blew my head off, was Jesse Jackson Jr. Jesse Jackson Jr., you gotta be, this guy stole from his campaign fund, which is another place you can steal from, I guess, if you want to. Because I never had any money to steal in my campaign fund. But Jesse Jackson had a lot of money. So he took the money from his campaign fund and he spent it on Michael Jackson memorabilia, like fedoras and clothes. He spent it on, I think he bought 2 moose's heads, he bought furniture, they went on partying with his wife. His wife, who was a city councilwoman in Chicago, was also involved. She was his campaign treasurer for a time. They stole all this money. When he realized he was going down, he decided he had a mental illness. He was manic depressive, and he puts himself in an institution, right? And as he's institutionalized, he wins the election anyway. Because it's Chicago, who cares? So he wins, he's not even campaigning, and he wins. Right? So he comes out, and then he decides to plead guilty. Everybody goes, Jesus, nobody needed was a new congressman. His wife pleads guilty. She's going to jail later. He's in jail now. And because the judge said, I'll keep them apart because they have a young kid to watch. But this guy, he's out there he was the head of the Congressional Progressive Caucus. He was co-chairman of Barack Obama's campaign. His constant theme was the rich don't pay enough taxes. Right? This is a guy going on to say if other people don't pay enough taxes. Guess what? Some of the charges he was convicted of was tax evasion because they never reported their income, him and his wife. On top of that, when he reaches 65, his pension's over $125,000 a year, and he's in jail. So what do you look for? Telltale signs before you get to the point. When the guy's stealing you blind, when he goes into office, he's worth 10 cents, and all of a sudden he's driving, Porsches the next week. What do you look for? One, look for the nepotism. And they're surrounding themselves with their girlfriends, their boyfriends, their wives, their cousins, their third cousins. That's what Pedro spotted it. That's a telltale sign. But at least make them qualified. At least make the jobs that show up jobs, not no-show jobs or sometimes show jobs. Because what happens is as you have more and more people not doing anything or doing anything well, other people have to make up the slack. You have to hire more people, you have to give them more hours, you have to increase their overtime, and then you end up spending more. And that's your tax dollars at work. Campaign contributions. Look at the campaign contributions. I'm always looking at campaign contributions. I laugh when I look at campaign contributions. I love to look at those because you see some crazy things, and you say something's wrong. You go, you look at like on Ryan Carvin's campaigns, you look at them and you say, why is this money coming in from Brooklyn? Right? Something's wrong with that in my mind. The latest one, why is this bus company giving all this money to Elon Schoenberger? All these people just decided on the same day to donate $4,000 each. Sure. It sends up a little red flags. That's been in the paper, but most people don't pay attention to this stuff. They don't care or don't understand. What's the impact on us? Is the decrease in our quality of life. Our taxes go up to support this whole mess, right? You have a corruption tax, in effect, to pay for all the stuff, money that's being stolen. You have the overcrowding, the services. And I think the classic example, and I'm not afraid to say that I've written about this, is Ramapo. The town of Ramapo. I mean, overcrowding, the roads are going to be saturated, the water supply is now in question about for the future. And then you have all these taxes, and now you have the schools. Talk about incompetent government. Our government just gives away money in the form of tax rebates and tax credits. They're going to school, they're going to sell the Hillcrest School, and they're going to sell the school, I think it's a 60,000 square foot building on 12 acres, 10 to 12 acres of land in Clarkstown. It's actually on the borders, on Clarkstown, adjacent to New Square. It's right there. And this is the only school in the district. It just spent over $2 million, new roof put in, air conditioning, and new heating system. This is the only school in the district that has all those amenities. And they said they're going to sell this school, and then it comes out they're selling it for $3.1 million. What it involves is they're not trying to sell, they're trying to steal this building from the taxpayers, and this is a specially strapped school district, right? And East Ramapo, it's dying from lack of funding. And now we find out that the appraiser has been charged with the Attorney General's office, and the case is in the Attorney General's office. And the appraiser is charged with stealing money, because what he did was he took money from the school district to do the appraisal, and he took money from the yeshiva in Spring Valley, that actually New Square, that wanted to purchase. So you don't get a fair appraisal. Then you start asking yourself, what are you asking yourself if you're an investigator or a prosecutor? Well, why is he taking money from the yeshiva? Right? Now, I don't think he came up with this appraisal that was 1/3 the value of the land on the books and half the value of a prior appraisal, which evidently wasn't good enough for the board because they immediately set out for a new one if they got that one, unless someone put him up to it. He's not going to risk his appraisal license. What would be this purpose? And then we find out from the Attorney General's complaint, someone on the school board directed the school board attorney to hire this guy for the appraisal. And the classic one here in Rockland, when I was DA, we worked with the feds, was the Smith Farm, where Paul Adler was a community, he was the Democratic chairman, and he was pressuring a town board member. Smith Farm is on that border between Clarkstown and Ramapo, and he wanted more lots in Clarkstown, because in Clarkstown the lots worth about $100,000 more than in East Ramapo because of the schools, which brings you back to the whole corruption thing to begin with, the decline of the schools. And they were trying to, he was trying to manipulate the system so that he was offering basically a job of trying to pressure a planning board member to approve more lots in Clarkstown. And that didn't work. And he was actually pled guilty to depriving people of their honest services as a political leader. He also was convicted of tax charges. Once again, another Democrat not paying his fair share. Tax charges, he didn't report his income he took from the Palisades Mall when they hired him as a consultant. So those were the two things he went down on. He did live a little over a year in prison. Now he's back, and in fact, he now helps sponsor fundraisers for Democratic candidates. So he's back, and they love him.
He also got his law degree.
He got his law. He had a law degree. Did he get admitted to the bar?
He passed
Yep.
the bar.
Passed the bar.
How did he get his real estate license back?
Why isn't Elliot Spitzer disbarred?
Yeah.
It's just some people land on the right side of it, and some people would, you know, be pitching quarters with the same background. So, but it comes back to, once again, the greed, the lust for power. You got to look for the hypocrisy. You got to look for the connections between people and what's going on, and you got to draw the dots. And it's you got to link all the dots together, draw them together to figure out what's going on. And the East Ramapo School District is a very difficult case, and the Attorney General's been on that for 2 years. They can go more. The town of Ramapo, you know, what's come out in the press, and I don't know much about that case other than the press, is that, you know, it looks like that they were, they're investigating whether or not the town overstated revenues and money coming in from the local development corporation when they put out a bond proposal so that investors would be duped into thinking the town, the LDC was worth more than it was. And more income, and that's securities fraud. So now I'm not a securities fraud expert, but you can't do that. You know, it's like when you have a company, you can't say, well, we'll just put down. It's like Enron. Oh, well, we'll just put down we're worth $50 billion, and we'll sell some stock. You can't do that. And the union corruption, you know, is something that's more powerful than the big business corruption, because you know, does Goldman Sachs have any influence on Rockland County? Not really, right? You know, the big business, IBM. General Motors, you know, they don't really. But what about the unions? They're pretty powerful here, right? Look at the police contracts. How powerful they are. I'm not saying it's corrupt, but they do have that influence on the politicians who are afraid to take them on and say, hey, we're not giving you a raise for the next 10 years. I mean, you're not going to get that PBA endorsement, are you? And you don't want to run for town council or supervisor without PBA endorsement. You just don't. So that's where we are. Character matters. Dishonorable. So that's where we are. Character matters.